The wind howled across the endless Nebraska plains, carrying the scent of hay and something darker. Trouble. 16-year-old Ellie Harper stood alone at the edge of her family's farm, her worn boots sinking into the soft earth, her hazel eyes scanning the horizon. She was quiet, always had been, the kind of girl who preferred the company of her dogs to the chatter of people. But today, something was different. The air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing, not in the sky, but in the hearts of three figures approaching through the golden wheat fields. Their laughter cut through the silence, sharp and cruel. Ellie's grip tightened on the old leather leash in her hand. She didn't know it yet, but this moment would change everything. Hey, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss stories like this one, stories of courage, loyalty, and moments that make your heart race. Ellie wasn't the kind of girl you'd notice in a crowd. Her faded plaid shirt hung loose on her slight frame, and her auburn hair was always tucked under a baseball cap, shielding her freckled face from the world. She'd grown up on Harper Farm, a sprawling 200 acres of corn, wheat, and dreams her family could barely hold on to. Her parents were always working, her dad in the fields, her mom at the diner in town. So Ellie spent her days with her two dogs, Scout and Ember. Scout was a scrappy border collie with one blue eye, always alert, always ready to move. Ember was a massive German shepherd, a rescue with scars on her muzzle and a heart that beat only for Ellie. They were her shadows, her protectors, her family. Out here, where the nearest neighbor was a mile away, they were all she needed. Or so she thought. The trouble started when Ellie began her sophomore year at Lincoln County High. The school was a 30-minute bus ride from the farm, a world of concrete and cliques that felt alien to her. She kept her head down, her cap pulled low, and spoke only when called on. But that didn't stop them. Leela Grayson and her crew. Leela was everything Ellie wasn't: loud, confident, the queen of the sophomore class with her glossy blonde hair and a smile that could cut glass. Her friends, Jake and Cassidy, followed her like wolves trailing a leader, eager for scraps of her approval. They'd noticed Ellie on the first day, sitting alone at lunch with a book, her backpack patched with duct tape. To them, she was an easy target, a nobody. And Leela loved breaking nobodies. It began with whispers in the halls. "Farm girl," they'd snicker as Ellie passed, her shoulders hunched. Then came the notes slipped into her locker, scrawled with words like "loser" and "dirt, poor." Ellie ignored them, swallowing the hurt, telling herself it didn't matter. She'd go home, hug Scout and Ember, and let the fields wash it all away. But Leela wasn't satisfied with whispers. She wanted a reaction, a crack in Ellie's quiet armor. By October, the bullying had escalated. They'd trip her in the cafeteria, spill her lunch tray, and laugh as she scrambled to clean it up. Once, Jake accidentally knocked her books into a puddle outside, watching with a smirk as she knelt in the mud to save them. Ellie never fought back. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just took it, her silence infuriating Leela even more. One crisp Friday afternoon, as the school bus rattled down the county road toward Harper Farm, Ellie stared out the window, her fingers tracing the worn edge of her cap. Scout and Ember were waiting for her at home, and the thought of their wagging tails kept her steady. But then she heard it, the low, mocking laugh from the back of the bus. Leela, Jake and Cassidy were with her, their voices loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, farm girl," Leela called, her voice dripping with venom. "You smell like a barn today. Forget to shower." The other kids snickered, some looking away, others joining in. Ellie's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes on the window, counting the fence posts flashing by 7, 8, 9. Just get home, she told herself. Just get to Scout and Ember. The bus stopped at the dirt road leading to Harper Farm, and Ellie grabbed her backpack, hurrying off. She thought she'd escaped. She was wrong. As the bus pulled away, she heard footsteps crunching behind her. Her stomach dropped. She turned to see Leela, Jake, and Cassidy stepping off the bus, their grins sharp as knives. "What's the rush, Ellie?" Leela said, her voice mockingly sweet. "We just want to see your fancy farm." Jake laughed, kicking a rock that skittered toward Ellie's feet. Cassidy smirked, twirling a strand of her dark hair. They'd planned this, Ellie realized. They'd gotten off at her stop, a mile from nowhere, with no one around to see. Ellie's heart pounded, but she kept walking, her boots kicking up dust on the narrow path. The farm was a quarter-mile ahead, the old red barn just visible through the wheat. She could hear Scout and Ember barking in the distance, their voices faint but growing louder. "You don't talk much, do you?" Leela said, closing the gap. "What's wrong, farm girl, scared?" Ellie didn't answer. She focused on the sound of her dogs, her lifeline. But then Jake grabbed her backpack, yanking it off her shoulder. It hit the ground, spilling her books into the dirt. "Oops," he said, laughing. Cassidy picked up one of the books, a worn copy of Charlotte's Web, and tossed it into the wheat. "You read baby books," she sneered. Ellie froze, her hands trembling. She wanted to run, to scream, but her voice stayed locked in her throat. Leela stepped closer, her blue eyes glinting with something dangerous. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" she hissed. "Always so quiet, like you're above it all. Let's see how quiet you are now." She shoved Ellie hard, sending her stumbling backward. Ellie caught herself, her cap falling to the ground, her auburn hair spilling free. The bullies laughed, circling her like vultures. Jake picked up a stick, jabbing it toward her. "Come on, farm girl. Say something." Ellie's eyes darted toward the farm. The barking was louder now, insistent. Scout and Ember knew something was wrong. She just had to hold on. But Leela wasn't done. She grabbed Ellie's arm, her nails digging into her skin. "You're nothing," she spat. "Just a dirty little nobody who smells like dog." Ellie yanked free, her breath hitching. She backed away, her boots slipping in the dirt, but Jake blocked her path, his grin wide. Cassidy snapped a photo with her phone, laughing. "This is going viral," she said. #FarmGirlFail. Ellie's vision blurred with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She could hear Scout and Ember now, their barks sharp and urgent, closer than before. And then she saw them, two shapes bursting through the wheat, moving like lightning. Scout reached her first, his black and white fur a blur as he planted himself between Ellie and the bullies, his one blue eye blazing. His growl was low, a warning that vibrated through the air. Ember followed, her massive frame looming, her scars catching the fading sunlight. She bared her teeth, a deep rumble rolling from her chest. Leela froze, her smirk vanishing. Jake dropped the stick, his hands raised. Cassidy's phone slipped from her fingers, landing in the dirt. "Whoa, whoa," Jake stammered, backing up. "Call them off." "Ellie!" But Ellie didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there, her dogs at her side, their loyalty a shield stronger than any words. The bully's confidence crumbled. Leela's voice shook as she tried to laugh it off. "They're just dogs," she said, but her eyes were wide with fear. Scout took a step forward, his growl deepening. Ember matched him, her ears flat, her body coiled like a spring. The air crackled with tension, the kind that makes your heart stop. Ellie finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "You should go." It wasn't a threat, not exactly, but it carried the weight of someone who'd been pushed too far. Leela opened her mouth to argue, but Ember's snarl cut her off. The bullies backed away, tripping over their own feet, their laughter replaced by panicked breaths. They ran, stumbling through the wheat, not looking back. As the dust settled and the bullies' footsteps faded, Ellie sank to her knees, her breath coming in shaky gasps. Scout pressed his nose against her cheek, his warmth grounding her, while Ember stood sentinel, her dark eyes scanning the fields for any sign of lingering danger. The weight of the moment crashed over Ellie like a wave, pulling her into a memory she hadn't visited in years. When she was 8, her older brother, Caleb, had been her protector, the one who'd taught her to whistle, to climb the oak by the barn, to laugh without fear. But Caleb was gone now, lost to a car accident on the icy county road 3 winters ago. The farm had grown quieter after that, her parents' grief a heavy fog that never quite lifted. Ellie had found Scout abandoned in a ditch a month later, a shivering pup with a crooked tail, and she'd nursed him back to health with bottles and blankets. Ember came a year after, dropped at the shelter with scars that told stories Ellie could only guess at. They'd become her anchor, filling the silence Caleb left behind. Kneeling there in the dirt, Ellie realized something. She wasn't just a quiet farm girl, a nobody to be broken. She was a survivor like her dogs. The bullies had seen her as weak, but they didn't know the strength it took to keep going when the world felt like it was crumbling. She thought of Caleb's laugh, how he'd tell her to stand tall, to fight back in her own way. Scout licked her hand, pulling her back to the present. Ellie wiped her tears, her fingers lingering on the scars along Ember's muzzle. These dogs weren't just her protectors. They were her family, her courage, her proof that broken things could still be fierce. She stood brushing the dirt from her jeans and looked toward the farm, the red barn glowing in the dusk. This wasn't just a moment of survival, it was a declaration. She wasn't invisible anymore. Not to herself, not to her dogs, and soon not to the world. Ellie watched the bullies disappear into the wheat, their silhouettes swallowed by the fading light. The tears she'd held back finally fell, but they weren't tears of fear. They were relief, gratitude, strength. She knelt, wrapping her arms around Scout and Ember, their warmth anchoring her to the earth. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire, and for the first time in months, Ellie felt like she could breathe. But the story didn't end there. Word spread fast in a small town. By Monday, the school was buzzing. Someone on the bus had seen it all, had recorded the bullies running from Ellie's dogs. The video hit social media, not with Cassidy's cruel hashtag, but with a new one, Fen Farm Girl Strong. Kids who'd ignored Ellie before now looked at her differently. Some smiled, some whispered apologies. Leela, Jake, and Cassidy kept their distance, their power shattered by two loyal dogs and a girl who'd refused to break. Ellie never became loud or bold. She stayed quiet, her cap pulled low, her books clutched tight, but something had changed. She walked taller, her dog's barks echoing in her mind like a promise. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Scout and Ember, and now she had herself. The farm was still her sanctuary, but it was also her strength. She'd faced the wolves and won, not with fists or words, but with the kind of courage that grows in silence, rooted deep like the wheat in her fields. As the weeks passed, Ellie started training Scout and Ember, teaching them new commands, running with them through the fields at dusk. She even began volunteering at the local animal shelter, helping other dogs find homes, sharing the love she'd found in her own. Her parents noticed the change, her dad ruffling her hair with a proud smile, her mom hugging her a little tighter. The farm wasn't just a place to survive anymore. It was a place to thrive. One evening, as Ellie sat on the porch with Scout and Ember, watching the stars ignite the Nebraska sky, she thought about the bullies. She didn't hate them, not really. She pitied them. They tried to break her, but they'd only made her stronger. She scratched Ember's ears, smiling as Scout nudged her hand. This was her story now. Not one of fear, but of loyalty, courage, and the kind of love that bites back. So what about you? From which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to know where Ellie's story is reaching. And if this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let's keep spreading stories of strength and heart.